So my name is Marie Tron. I'm a professor here at Valencia College. And the stage office asked me if I would do a presentation for International Education Week. So that is what I've done. And do you want it darker? You can see the colors better. There you go. I love doing music in the background because I was listening to this when I made this. I'm like, oh, I'm going to play music at the same time. So anyhow, I'm just going to tell you how I participated in study abroad and how it totally changed where my life went. So, you know, and even if you don't want to go to the places I've gone to, the study abroad office here at Valencia offers all Valencia students a chance to go to all kinds of different countries. I'll show you at the end of this presentation some of your options. And pretty much anybody that goes, the average that they give you is $1,800 for free that you get to go to any country with. It's a screaming awesome deal. So anyway, and I didn't have that when I went. I just paid for everything out of pocket. But anyway, so my life all started really, this kind of adventure started when I was 7 years old. And I had watched a National Geographic episode on Diana Fossey's work with mountain gorillas where she was counting them. And I told my mom that one day I wanted to do the exact same thing, but instead of with gorillas, I wanted to do it with dolphins. And I don't know why, because I lived in Pennsylvania. There was no ocean anywhere around there. I just wanted to do it with dolphins. And my friend Pam, she's the one in the white there, she's the one that said, you know what? That's your calling. And so I guess it's been my calling since I was 7 that I wanted to work with dolphins. And so my adventure really started when I went to college at St. Mary's College of Maryland. And in 1987, I was a college sophomore. And we went to Belize. That was my first travel abroad. It was for a tropical marine biology course. And because I wanted to work with dolphins, I thought, well, heck, this would be a great thing to go to. Although I didn't even know what Belize was. So school was up here in Maryland, there's Maryland, right? And we flew to Miami and then down here to Belize City. Never heard of it, didn't know what it was. That's where we landed. And then we drove in a bus. And it was pretty scary because I'd never been on roads that skinny. And we went all the way over here to Belmopan and then down here to Dambriga. Whoops, down here to Belmopan, Dambriga, and then off to the coast. And we were on this little tiny island, and that was our accommodations during our study abroad. And not much there, cold water shower, beds that didn't have any mosquito nets or anything, and like that's where some of the other people slept. And our dining room table doubled as our classroom table, study area at night, and even where we took our lab practical exam, such as you see right there. And then our 3 instructors graded our exams like that while enjoying a few beers. But we did all sorts of things during that trip. We went beach sailing and looked for all kinds of creatures. We put them in fish tanks in our sea lab that we had there. So those that did them in my marine bio class, we got an octopus, crab, and a wonderful sea cucumber. And we looked at things under the microscope for like the plankton and the larvae. And we even ate some of the things we were studying. So we had yummy fresh fish every day, lobsters, fish, which I didn't think I'd like the fish. But I ended up loving it because I always thought fish was square fish that you get at McDonald's, and it was actually really, really good. We did water work where we got to go swimming. Some of those of us that were scuba certified went scuba diving, and I was just blown away by the beauty of the corals and the fish. And even though my love was dolphins, my love just totally expanded to everything else. And the one time we went diving, there was a dolphin that swam by, and it's really hard to see. It's right there, but I outlined it for you. And this is back in the day without digital photography, so this was done with like, someone's 35mm underwater camera. And even though we did a lot of work during that trip, it was beautiful. We had time to relax and sit out on the dock. I actually slept out on the dock a couple of nights. And anyway, on the way back, instead of driving to Belmopan and Belize City, we flew on a little airplane like that. Totally scary, especially when we saw the crashed airplanes next to that dirt runway, right? And the pilot's going, too much baggage, as we're trying to clear the trees. But it changed my life. That whole trip changed my life. And so the following spring break, I went to travel abroad again, but this time I went to the British Virgin Islands. whee, over here. So we flew over here, and I did an independent study with another student, and specifically, we went to Great Camino, and that's where we did our independent study, and I did it on sea urchins. It was so much fun. And then the following spring break, as a senior, I went back to Belize as a teacher instructors, and I just couldn't help it. I just loved it. Following college, I got a job right there where the dolphin is. I have a small aquarium called Aquarium Niagara, and I had a great time there, and it got bigger. There were dolphins, that was primarily what I did, but we also had sea lions, seals, penguins, fish, otters, everything. But it was cold there, and I missed going abroad, so I went to Mexico to visit, and I had a friend in the Peace Corps in Honduras, so I flew down to Honduras. Specifically, I went to the state of Yoro, and had a great time there, and I just kept going back and going back, and I said, you know what? I just need to move down there. I need to move somewhere cool. So I took a job at Xcaret. I accepted the job at Xcaret as a dolphin trainer. That's where the dolphins are kept right there. And that's one of our dolphins. Isn't he cool? We took him out and scuba in the open ocean. We took people, we let people interact with him, kind of like Discovery Cove, but this was in Mexico. And so anyway, I drove there from up there in New York all the way down to this part. Wow, there's Playa, to Playa del Carmen, and then I worked right down the road right here at Xcaret. So, and that's all because of that stupid study abroad class, because I couldn't stop thinking about going there. So there I went down to Mexico, and I loved it. But I had these impressions, even though I'd been to Belize, that like all of Mexico was going to be like banditos and things like that. And I was totally surprised. Oh, there were cows in the road. They said don't drive at night. And the reason you don't drive at night isn't because of the banditos, but there are cattle in the road and you can't see them. And by the time you see them, it's too late to hit them. Or when people break down, they put rocks in the road behind their cars so they don't get plastered by somebody going behind them. And they don't pick up the rocks when they're done. They just drive away. And you don't want those rocks to hit your car. So you don't drive at night. But there were big cities, kind of like here in the United States, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I was 26 at the time when I drove down there, so that's Veracruz, and I always get lost in Veracruz. But there's also all kinds of beautiful things. Along the way, I took time, I stopped at Chiapas, in the state of Chiapas, and that's Palenque, some beautiful ruins. They've got beautiful Caribbean coast, which is just amazing stuff, that's where we worked. And even freshwater springs, kind of like here in Florida. And of course, you do get the stereotypical things like mariachis at the tourist restaurants, but that's all in fun. The normal people are like us. And I brought a skunk with me. So I had a pet skunk at the time, and I snuck her across the border into Mexico, and I learned how to pay bribes. So this was my first introduction on learning how to pay a bribe and when to do it. And so I was also into bicycle racing at the time. And so my papers weren't completely clear yet. And so before I moved down there from Niagara Falls, I often would go to, where's St. Catharines? Here it is. St. Catharines right there it is, in Canada to race bikes. There was this thing there. And so someone told me up there that before I left that I needed to go to Belize and do the bicycle race that was on Good Friday. So of course, I had to do it. And so I drove. Remember, I drove to Mexico, and then I drove from Mexico all the way down to Belize City. So a place that I hadn't even heard of like 8 years previous, and thought I would never ever go there again. That was a trip, once in a lifetime trip. Someplace that seemed so far away you can only get to by a plane. I drove there. And I had to pay a bribe to get into the country, into Belize. I had to get out of Mexico. So that's why I was so happy there, because I was like, hey, I made it in, yay, I finally get to do this bike race. And so I drove. And this is probably one of the things was like one of the biggest accomplishments really in my life, is to have my little red Ford Escort with New York plates in Belize City. Love it. I worked hard to find that picture. I couldn't believe I found that picture. There it is. And so, and I had my St. Catharines, Canada racing jersey, and there we are racing in Belize, going to Belmont Pond, that place I'd never heard of. I'd also made a lot of friends down there, and I got to go to other cities that, the tourists don't usually go to, like Tikul. My friend Elena was from Tikul. And so Tikul is right there, and it's got lots of ruins too. Everybody always thinks of like Chichen Itza, but there are all kinds of cool ruins there. And we got to see how it's taking their regular life. I pretended to wash clothes by hands, but I didn't do it. And then go to the markets and things like that. Once you see the meat in the market hanging like that with all the flies, you want to become vegetarian. So I didn't eat much meat after I saw that, even though I know you cook the meat. But then there are like the most magnificent animals, like the sea turtles come right up. You can watch them laying eggs. If you're into marine biology or just nature in general, it is just an amazing experience. And that was our little ocean camp that we went to sometimes. And we had nice, cool equipment at work. So it was both kind of old time and modern all at once. It was just an amazing experience. And my family came to visit me. That's my mom and my brother while I was working down there. So they got there on one day. I took them to Chichen Itza, the ruins that everybody always goes to in the pyramids. And Chichen Itza is right there again. And that's like the famous pyramid at Chichen Itza. And then the next day we had a hurricane. Awesome. So this was in October, and that was Hurricane Roxanne. And so we spent the night in a hotel refuge instead of in my little cheesy apartment. And we had bought this really cool chess game, so my brother and I played chess. And I brought my skunk along too to, weather out the hurricane. She had a good time. And that's kind of the aftermath. But you would think hurricane, I always had these preconceptions that hurricanes were these god-awful things. And of course, we just had one. But look at the stick houses. The little stick houses, they did fine. The trees lost their leaves, but the houses did fine. And my fear of hurricanes greatly diminished after that first hurricane. And so after I left Mexico, I wanted time to think, and then I became a truck driver, and I drove all across the United States, having a great time. And my skunk went with me there too. But one night when I was in North Carolina, I was driving to North Carolina, I had this idea of like, this really cool research idea, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go to grad school. So I ended up going to get my master's degree at Andrews University in Michigan, and they took us to, right? I get bored, I like adventure. Yeah, so I went to Andrews University, and for 2 credits, my last 2 credits was going to the Peruvian Amazon. So super cool. So there we are up there in Michigan, and we fly down here to Lima, and then up here into the middle of nowhere. There's no roads to Iquitos. The only way to get to Iquitos is by boat via the Atlantic Ocean, Brazil, the Amazon River, and up, or by airplane. That's the only way to get there still today. So it's extremely remote, and all kinds of really super cool wildlife, tons of biodiversity, different species, of all sorts of things. People come from all over the world to see this bird right here, which is called a watsi. When they're babies, they have claws on their wings right here. And if there's a predator, the babies just drop out of the nest into the water because everything's flooded. And then with those claws, they climb right back up into their nest. So they're like prehistoric birds, kind of related, more closely related to dinosaurs than probably any other living bird today. They smell bad too. But it was just beautiful down there and intense in all kinds of crazy ways. I love this picture, it's so busy. This is just a town, and they're doing their evening thing. So you got some kids playing and swimming, and somebody looking like he's killing the kids, but he's actually making a canoe. People doing laundry, all sorts of things right here in that picture. Super cool. And a totally different way of life, because like in the United States now there's like rules that you can't even vote if you're like 14 or under after those kids went missing last year. But here it's like, oh, go on out and play, go play in the canoe, right? And we went mudsliding. That was so much fun. We swam to the village. So normally you had to take a boat to get to the village, but 3 of us students decided we were going to swim to the village, and then we got there. And I had on a swimsuit that was like a Speedo, one of those Speedo swimsuits, so it was kind of expensive. And these people were wearing clothes we traded for souvenirs the day before that we had picked up from like Goodwill. So I didn't want to get out of the water until the kids started throwing water up on the mud bank, and we started mudsliding. And I'm like, I'm in. And that was so much fun. But we went to the top of the canopy. They have this canopy walkway that's about a little over a half-mile long, and you ascend up to higher than what this building is. This building is 94 feet tall at the very tippy top. That thing, you go up to 115 feet. And there's a capybara there oftentimes, and I went swimming with the little capybara named Charlie. That's back in 1997. And there were pink dolphins. We saw the pink dolphins and the gray dolphins. There's 2 species. So that was super cool, and I thought that would be a once-in-a-lifetime trip, just like I thought Belize would be. And we did a class photo, after we all got our little temporary tattoos. They lasted about 2 weeks. And that wasn't the only thing, because I liked going abroad. So I did my master's thesis in Tobago, which is off the coast of Venezuela. There's Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago is the little island up there, and I did it mostly up here at Charlottesville with the Smithsonian Institute, and I did a fish biodiversity study. So we sampled fish, and that was my master's thesis. And then, of course, I graduated. And I went straight from that into my PhD program at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. And I did it with the Marine Mammal Behavior and Cognition Lab, and they now do work all over the world. And I did some of my research at Gulfport, Mississippi, at their aquarium called Marine Life, which no longer exists because Katrina totally washed it right off the map. But, of course, I loved Mexico, and I wanted to go back. So I did my dissertation research in Mexico with dolphins. So I drove a second time all the way down to Cancun. And I got to another job as a trainer at a place called Atlantia, which is now called Dolphinaires. And those are my coworkers when I worked there. And we also did primarily dolphins, but also some sea turtles and stuff. But I was focused on doing some cognition research because I'm interested in how dolphins and animals in general think and what turns them on and what gets them happy. And anyway, I finished that. I graduated under Stan Kujai. And Stan Kujai, my professor, has been featured in National Geographic. And then I took a job at Dolphin Research Center in the Florida Keys. And I did a little bit more dolphin cognition research, things like numerosity, and we call that object permanence. If you want to know more about any of these things, I can talk about it later, but for time's sake, I'm just going to buzz right through it. Match to sample, and again, I could show you this later, but basically, like, the dolphin touched an object in the center and then had to pick whatever matched. And during that time, I got invited with Stan to go to Kyoto University to do a workshop on comparing chimpanzee intelligence to dolphin intelligence, and that was a lot of fun. So again, I'm traveling yet again to Japan this time, and we got to go to all these different aquariums and got some really cool experiences. And so anyway, that's Stan again. He invited me to write a paper on play in wild and captive cetaceans, and we got that thing published. And in the process of doing that, I came in contact with this guy named Dave Bonnet, who had been doing some acoustic research. He was just a retired acoustician doing it for fun in the Peruvian Amazon. Because again, we're going to go back to Peru and back up to Iquitos. There we go. Right where I was for my master's program. And so he was studying the pink dolphin, trying to come up with a way to count them acoustically because it's really hard to see them in the water. That's a really rare photo. You don't usually get photos that well. And their numbers are diminishing because there's a lot of pressures that people are putting on them, including like hunting them intentionally to cut them up and use them as bait in those traps to catch those catfish right there. And that's just one thing out of a bunch of things. This isn't a depressing presentation, so we won't spend time on it. But roughly they're being killed at 3 times the rate that they can have their babies. And visually you can't count them, so we're trying to use acoustics. And the data is so intense. Who's heard of like big data? Big data, right? Big data is where you have so much data. Like for me to process 1 second of data takes about 10 hours by hand. So it needs to be automated with computers. So I went to this conference in Atlanta, and it was on bioacoustics and machine learning. I learned a lot from that conference because I didn't realize big data was that big. But it was led by that guy. His name is Hervé Glotte. He's from France. He's from Toulon, France, right down there at the bottom. And we have since become collaborators and we do a ton of stuff together. That same year, later that year, I got invited out of the blue by this company called International Expeditions to come down to Peru, get guests on their boat, speak to their people, and there began my true field research in Peru. So they paid for my airline ticket, and I got to Iquitos, and then we went up to the Pacaya Reserve here, and I got to record here, and then I went back down here and did some recording in that area as well. At the time, I was going through cancer treatment, so I was going through chemo, and I didn't have any hair. But I went anyway because it was an opportunity, or I didn't want to blow it. So we're doing some turtle egg harvesting right there. And so that year for Christmas, that's Father Christmas in French. Those of you that don't speak French, Harry asked what I wanted. I said I wanted recording equipment. So we are now designing recording equipment that can take 1 million sound samples per second on 4 hydrophones at the same time. And it is super cool. Nobody else has this stuff. And because of that, we can spy on our dolphins better. He also helped provide me with some hydrophones, as well as Dave Bonnet loaned me a hydrophone. These things are like $2 grand each. And so what we're doing is when the dolphin makes a sound, sound has a fixed rate of speed of travel through the air and then through the water. So in the water it's like 1,480 meters per second. So when a dolphin makes a sound, it'll hit one hydrophone before another, and then we can trace where they're at in the water column. And from going to another conference, I got access to a side scan sonar system, which sends sound out that's high frequency that we can't hear to the side and down, and it allows you to, like, if there's a dolphin in this is the water column, this is the dirt underneath, so this is the water on top of the dirt. So when the sound hits the dolphin, it produces an acoustic shadow, and that is the acoustic shadow, and we can tell how deep the water, where the animal is in the water column. We can measure them afterwards, and that image looks a lot like a real dolphin. In fact, the first time I used it, I thought the girl that loaned it to me planted the picture. I thought it was fake, but it was real. And so then we started an effort to unite all the bioacoustic researchers in Latin America, and I sponsored a workshop in Florida a couple of years ago, and I got to spend other people's money. Isn't it fun to spend money? Who likes to spend money? Yeah. The Acoustical Society of America gave, if you volunteer to do stuff like this, they say, here, spend $5,000. We're like, yeah, no problem. So actually it was Juliana's idea, and I just helped her out. These 2 girls are from Brazil. And then the following, so that was in 2 years ago, and then in 2016, I went back to Peru and spent the summer. I spent 3 months there instead of just 3 weeks. And that's Dave Bonnet from Seattle, the rear acoustician. He came down. Hervé came over with his wife from France. There's a guy from Belgium I hooked into doing this stuff, and a couple of people, they are from France and Chile. And then the rest of the people are researchers from Peru. So we now do this collaboration. And this is the thing about travel abroad. It isn't just what you get to do, but I'm telling you, it's those interactions with people, getting to know people, and it just lights you up, and it's just a lot of fun. We founded our Amazon Dolphin Acoustics Lab down in the Peruvian Amazon. That's what it looks like at night, kind of like a little fish tank. And those are some of the people that came down and helped me work that summer. And Hervé and Pascal's children right there, they designed our logo. And so we use it for storing our equipment as well as for working in there. And that is our 7 hydrophone array. And that's kind of what it looks like when we're out on the river doing this kind of research. It can be hot, but it's kind of fun because you're spying. It's like the dolphins are doing their own thing, and I just feel like when everything goes right and the equipment's is working and everything's functioning and it's quiet, it's like time stops. And you go into this place and nothing can bother you, and it's just like, oh, I feel like such a spy because I can see what they're doing, and the dolphins don't realize I'm spying. So anyway, that's us working on the boats. And we also tested the equipment. We calibrated it to make sure it was actually recording the frequencies we thought. And we used that high frequency sonar system, and we used the swimming pool at one of the lodges where we were staying. And then we went out in the ocean, not in the ocean, but in the river, and we tested it there. And the thing about doing research in the river versus on the ocean is I get seasick. So I'm a marine biologist, right? And the sad thing is, if the water's like more than that rough, in waves, I get sick. But I don't get sick on the river, so it makes it easy for me to study the river dolphins. We have GoPro cameras to document what the animals are doing at the same time as we are recording them. And then we get to share this information with local communities. So we play the sounds to the students there. We'll record the students. I could actually do it for you if I had the program on this computer. But we can speed up their recordings and slow them down, and students think that's a lot of fun. They don't really even have mirrors, so the fact that they can hear their voices, they are just fascinated with it. And so are the other people in the community, not just the school kids. So everybody comes in to see what we're doing. It's a lot of fun. We also interact with the universities in the area, so We collaborate with them, and even with guests that come down, and actually that's how I pay for my room and board, is I interact with the guests, and I share with the guests, and then I get free room and board. So this other story is if there's something you want to do and you think it's going to cost too much, there are always ways that it can be done. I'm not directly paid, but shoot, that's a pretty good deal. In the summertime, I don't have to cook. I don't have to change my sheets. It's a sweet deal. Yeah, and I don't have to go to the store, so that's pretty cool. We've expanded our research to not just dolphins, but also recording the soundscape up in the canopy. This is up at the top of the canopy walkway. This place I was at during my master's program, and now I am setting up research experiments there. And we're recording birds, insects, frogs, everything, and trying to develop computer programs that will automatically detect different species to give us a better way of assessing biodiversity. We've also branched out last summer to recording bats. So that's our little bat array where we have 4 microphones to record bats. And nobody's ever recorded bats up in the air. Everybody's always recording bats down on the ground. So we're like, this is the other thing about being a scientist. People have explored every inch of the planet. There's nowhere to go that people haven't gone. We aren't yet going to other planets. So the only way to really discover new things is to be a scientist. And to say that you're like the first to do something is kind of exciting. If you watch the movie The Martian, did anybody see that movie, The Martian, with Matt Damon? And he was like, I'm the best botanist on the planet, because he was on Mars. Of course, he was the only botanist, but that didn't matter. So it's just fun. And so we're recording bats at the top of the canopy as well. And that place where I was actually scared to walk on the canopy walkway because I was a little scared of heights, I now sleep up there. And that's super cool. You don't sleep well, but it's still super cool. It's kind of like you spend the night at the top of the trees. Of course, sometimes you get rained on, so that's where it's not so fun. And the ants are bad. But there's so much wildlife there. We have pileated woodpeckers here in Florida, but they've got them down there, and they're not as afraid of you there as they are here. Hummingbirds, kind of, if you're into birds at all, the biodiversity of birds is astounding. There's parrots, there's birds, there's owls. We work with people doing sustainability projects or trying to come up with ways for the local people to earn money so they don't have to cut down their forest. So this is Mike Gilmore from George Mason University, and then this guy back here is Randy Morgan, and he's the curator of the insect zoo in Cincinnati, but he has since retired. And together they're working on developing ways to raise stingless bees. These bees don't sting, and people have the logs in their houses, and every 3 months they'll open the log, divide the nest, and then continue to grow the bees and then harvest the honey, and then they can sell the honey. Randy also taught me how to catch tarantulas, so now I know how to catch a tarantula and not get hurt. So it's kind of fun when you meet people like that. And I'm not much of a bug person, insect is the technical term, but there are some crazy, crazy insects down there that just mimic and look like other things to avoid being eaten by predators. And so this insect fascinates me. I don't even know what kind of, I think it's a katydid, but again, I don't know much about bugs. But it's got where it's got herbivory marks on its wings, even though those wings are insect. I mean, it looks like a leaf that's been eaten. Totally cool. That is a praying mantis. Who would have ever guessed? It's only about that big. But this is the back. This is kind of the front. Those are the arms, and that's the head. So it's kind of looking away from us. That big. And, these Amazon forest guides have grown up and lived there. And we're walking along a trail, and I'm like, what is that? And he goes, oh, it's an ant carrying a leaf. And I'm like, no, it's not. And then when you look closer, I'm like, my God, that's a freaking praying mantis. Isn't that crazy? Wow. So anyway, I was blown away by that. And this one's really weird because this is an insect that's supposed to look like a stick, but he sticks out, he's red. When things are brightly colored, usually that's a type of warning to say, hey, I'm poisonous, don't eat me. And yet this thing is so bright, he's evolved to look like a stick, but then also to say, don't eat me. So he evolved to blend in, but now don't eat me, so I can eat him. And I don't know what kind of walking stick he is, but he's pretty cool. And I mean, okay. Isn't that cute? Okay, if you don't like bugs, and I'm one of those people, you will want to hold that. And it doesn't hurt, it just walks off of your hand. It's really cute. I don't know where Randy found that one, but he found that, I think. Or maybe Steve did, I don't know. And there's like porcupines, like cool little porcupines that you might get to see. So much wildlife. And like that thing, we got about as close as you and I are to that porcupine. He just sat there. Because they're not as afraid of people down there as animals are here. And okay, that was cute. That was a little baby peccary. She grew to be a little bit bigger. I don't think she'll still be there next summer. So when they orphaned animals down there, like if they shot the mother or something like that, they'll bring the orphan animals to sanctuaries. But I don't know, she'll probably be bacon, I'm thinking. Well, it happens. They gotta eat too. There are no stores. Okay, if you're hungry, you guys go down to the cafeteria, right? Or you go to stop at McDonald's or Wendy's. When you're out in the jungle, there are no stores, literally nothing. They have to travel sometimes 2 days to get to a Keto's just to buy something like salt. You know, so it's not easy to get stuff there, so I'm okay if that became bacon. Fish are cute. They say there are more species of fish in the Amazon River than the entire Atlantic Ocean. And so one of our other projects is now, and it's so funny how life is serendipitous, is to start assessing the biodiversity of fish in all of these local communities throughout the Amazon, which I'll be working with the fisheries and Iquitos to do this project. So it's kind of funny, some of the projects I did as an undergrad and through graduate school are now coming together, and I'm doing them now in Peru, and it's just fun. And that's a caiman lizard. It's about as big as a big iguana, but they swim. And so there's all kinds of cool stuff, and they'll just run around right next to you. It's like, wow, what is that? That's kind of scary. But anyway, and you go and do things at night, and you explore at night and catch caiman if you want, just for fun. These are things you can do just for fun. And that owl sat outside the lab last summer. It's a little owl. It's only about that big. It's a screech owl, but it sounds like this. Let's see if I can remember the sound. It kind of goes, whoop, 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 whoop. It doesn't screech it out. I didn't hear it screech, but it made that cute little sound. And it ate moths. It ate little moths. And there was like a researcher that had come down to see what they ate by looking at all the moth wings, or like the moth wings, because the owls eat the body part and not the wings. And he would count the wings, and that's how he figured out what their diet was. And they hang out there because there's lights. And what are moths attracted to? Lights. So there's lots of free food. But they're really cute. And I mean, the sky is incredible. If you've never seen stars, here in Orlando it's hard to see stars. You go down there and it is clear what the Milky Way is. It is clear, no doubt about it. And shooting stars, and it's just really pretty. And oh, there's that walking stick thing. It didn't hurt. I mean, it's kind of freaky. I mean, I'm still scared, but he's not scared. And so, anyway, I don't know whatever happened with that thing. And there's these two things, and you'll meet so many cool people. Has anybody heard of the bug chicks? The bug chicks are super cool. You can Google them, and they have all these educational programs they do. They're from Portland, so of course you're going to find weird people like that in Portland. And they're okay if I call them weird, because I love them very much. They taught me how to bake a spider. So I found a tarantula, and they taught me how to bake it. I baked it in the oven, and then they taught me how to preserve it. And I have it in my office now. But that's a bullet ant. Has anybody ever heard about bullet ants? Yeah, tell us what about bullet ants?
Not good.
No, man. Have you heard of a bullet ant? So there's this pain index. There's this guy. He's weird. He won a Nobel Prize called the Schmidt Pain Index. And this guy went around. He's from Arizona, I think. I had to look him up. He looks strange. He goes around the world and he purposely gets stung and bit by insects to see, and then he rates how much pain it is. Yeah, I heard an interview with him on a podcast. Totally weird guy. And he rated this as like the most painful, the bullet ant. And he says it's like slicing your foot deep and then stepping on a hot scorching iron. And like, no thank you, I don't want any part of that. But they don't mind. And look, it's in a little plastic container, but that's a real bullet ant. Bug chicks, they don't care. They don't mind getting stung. They haven't been bit by a bullet ant yet, but anyway, they're fun. And then it all came kind of circled around because last year I had and to me it was a gift. I finally got to take a group of students from Valencia to the Peruvian Amazon, a place I thought I would never, ever, ever go again, and to the same place where I was a student a few years ago. And so there we all are around this big giant ceiba tree. So cool. So what's next? I have no idea. Life continues to be an adventure, and wherever it goes, I'm going to go, and I'm going to bring as many people along with me because it's fun, and life should be happy and fun, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And that's all I prepared. But let me show you what, I did it just in time too. I want to take some moment here and show you the SAGE website. So let me go to here. And if you go and type in Study Abroad Global Experience, like this, you're to this place that's called Short-Term Study Abroad Programs. And here are the programs for 2018. And remember, you may have a different path, but my whole path started out by doing a 10-day class like this, which is why I like taking students abroad now, because it totally changed my life. The ones that say closed means they're already full and they don't have any more students, or they've already left. I don't know. No, that's spring break. It says closed. I don't know why Costa Rica canceled. Service learning in Belize, that one's closed, but they're going to go do coral reef restoration. And that trip was only like $2,000. You could have your life changed for $2,000, right? Super deal. And then there's like health in Italy and Greece. Here's another social internship and entrepreneurship. And there's humanities in Spain that's still open. I managed to get 5 more spots for my class, so if anybody wants to go to Peru, you can still go there. You can do math. And I think this college mathematics course, if I read the thing right, they're not even going to give any exams. So you can get your 3 college credits in math, but you're still going to work. Don't think you're not going to do work. You'll still have to go to work and earn those 3 credits. But that might be a fun way to do your math. Humanities. There's a lot of humanities that go abroad. And then there's politics. So if you're interested in any of those, you can contact me, I guess, or the SAGE department. But there's all sorts of cool opportunities to get your life changed by study abroad experience, which is super fun. You'll laugh, you may cry. It's a little different sometimes when you go and you're used to having certain things certain ways. But I don't know anybody really that went abroad and said their life wasn't changed somehow. It wasn't a good experience. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions about studying abroad in general or anything in general?
I have a question.
Yes.
You said you did a study on dolphins and chimpanzees. Who was smarter? So who was the smarter?
Well, it's hard to say who's smarter because what is intelligence? Can you define it? That's the first thing. What is intelligence? I have my own biased opinions. I think people are smart. I mean, dolphins are smarter than chimps. But dolphins don't have hands, right? They don't have hands. But chimps do, and we often think things are smart because they can make things or they use tools and stuff like that. But even still, they've got documented tool use with dolphins, even though they don't have hands. They've got documented cases of dolphins cooperating and helping each other, teaching each other, explicitly taking time and incurring a price from teaching, imitation, all these things that we think are, higher cognitive abilities, dolphins do, and their chimps do it too. I mean, chimps can do it too, but I'm just kind of biased. Yeah. They're super fun. It's always hard to come up with a question too. If you're training something and you're looking at intelligence, the problem is you got to train it and then test them on something a little bit novel. But in the process of training, sometimes if the animal's so smart, they'll get bored. So there was one study they had done at Dolphin Research Center where they were looking to see if the dolphins could detect oil on the surface of the water to deal with like oil spills and things like that. And the dolphin was doing pretty good with the training and they were ready to test. And once they started testing, she got 100% incorrect. because she was trying to tell him, I'm sick of this stupid game. I'm bored, so I'm deliberately going to get everything wrong. But, you know, the fact that she got 100% definitely said she knew what she was doing. But to me, and that shows another insightful thing, a way of trying to communicate without using words. But the way they hear, their hearing range is higher than us. So they can't really, I don't think they can, our voices are at the very lower edge of their hearing spectrum. So I think we kind of sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to them, kind of right? And you can't hear, when we listen live, you can't hear the dolphins at all. It's silent. It's only after you record it and you slow it down that you can actually hear it. Because you have to shift their sounds into our hearing range. So this is another reason nobody's really looked at doing this, is because first, people don't make equipment to record in frequencies that are above human hearing range, which is why we have to make our own equipment. And then the other part is that I think some people might find it not interesting because you can't actually hear it in real time, and you have to slow it down. And it doesn't sound melodic like the whistles and the chirps and things. It's just these little clicks, like a pen.
So this is for environmental science, right?
Yeah, the class that I'm taking in April is for environmental science. It's 3 science credits, no official exams. I do give one during the pre-trip meetings to see if you've actually learned about what Peru's going to be like. And then I look at the results from that to see what I need to teach more. I don't want people wandering off in the jungle because they did last year. But, you know, there's animals that can kill you there, okay? And I don't want to be responsible for that. It's horrid. And then we'll never be able to take students there again. So I want to make sure this time that you understand there's animals that kill you, that could kill you. You're going to be safe. But just don't go walk out in the jungle by yourself. We'll send a guide with you. There's a snake down there about this big, and it blends in with the leaves. It's called a fer-de-lance, and you can be dead within a few hours. And there was a guy that, and I'm not trying to scare you guys. I'm not trying to scare you. But that's why you send a guide with you, somebody that's got hawk eyes to like see where these things are. Yeah. But there's a lady, she's got a clinic down there. Her name's Dr. Linnea Smith, and she has a Western medicine clinic, and we have access to all that, and there's anti-venom there. So if you do get bit by a snake, we've got access to anti-venom, and it's good stuff. She has more stuff in her clinic than they do in the pharmacies and Aikidos, and that's personal experience. So you're safe if you go. You just got to know the right people. And so anyway, I'm going to give a pre-trip exam to see if you've learned all the stuff we've taught in the pre-trip. And there'll be like projects that we're going to do as well. We're going to do like an independent science project, so everybody's going to pick a topic that's interesting to them. And they're going to compare life here in Orlando to life down there. So for example, if you're interested in like forestry and wood, you can go to like Home Depot and look at what kind of wood is there, and then look at what kind of trees are being cut down, or come up with a business plan on how to import honey, because I want to see that honey sold in the United States. We're also going to go to an artisanal medicinal factory. Now you guys got me talking about my own trip. An artisanal medicinal factory where they take trees and plants from the forest and they process that to like herbal medicine. But I can tell you, I know somebody down there. He was a guy. His wife had breast cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in Lima and told she had 6 months to live. They moved to the jungle, and she started drinking a glass of uña de gato tea. Uña de gato is a type of plant, and she did that every day for 10 years. The cancer did get her, finally, but 6 months versus 10 years. There's all kinds of magic stuff. Well, not magic, but I call it like, because like with our perception it's magic, but all kinds of things that still need to be discovered, and local people probably know it, we just don't. So I don't necessarily mean discover brand new, but maybe discover, once, find the plant, find the chemical compound that's doing that, and spread the information. It can make our lives much better. And you might go on a trip like this and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I don't know. You never know. Or any of these trips abroad. These trips abroad classes change your lives. So, and again, if you're a Valencia student with a 2.5 and you got at least 12 credits at the time of travel, the SAGE department gives you an automatic scholarship. And so for my class, it's $1,800, and that's about the average of each scholarship to go towards the price of the trip. You will never travel so well, so cheaply, until you get paid to go.